Video games.
They're cool.
They're a thing.
They are. Last I checked, anyway.
What if there was a television series based around video games?
We're in luck. There is.
I mean, there's quite a few.
Yeah, but like this one's good.
Surprisingly so.
So there's that.
From your friends at Square Enix,
Ugh, don't call them my
the
friends.
publishers of this manga, which was adapted into an anime.
Yes. So we're talking about two things
That's
technically.
true. We're talking about three things.
Oh Jesus.
We are. Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Season Anime Checkup OVA. It's a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, manga, all of them. Hello, I'm Jared, joined as always by the Doctor of Owls and Ladium.
Hello.
This is episode 127
Why'd you just spit on me?
because this is revenge for when that time you said you were going to spit on him.
Okay.
He was playing the long game,
The long
the
game.
long con.
Ugh, you just spit all over me. Anyway.
Anyways, hello. We are talking about the animated series High Score Girl.
Yep.
It's an anime
It's an anime,
about playing video games in the 90s,
which is exciting.
the Japanese arcade scene,
Yeah.
based
In the
off
90s.
based off the manga of the same name from your friends at Square Enix.
They're not my friends.
Before we get into talking about these episodes, I got a hot tip for you.
Okay.
Did you know this? There was a time where this manga was in danger of being shut down
Yes, because of all the legal issues.
because of legal issues. From Wikipedia, everyone's favorite source of everything, the source of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
On August 5th, 2014, that was like 5 years ago,
Jesus.
Osaka District Police searched the offices of Square Enix, the publishers of High Score Girl, acting on an IP violation claim by SNK Playmore, stating that the manga allegedly featured over 100 instances of characters from The King of Fighters, Samurai Showdown, and other fighting games.
Mm-hmm.
In response, Square Enix voluntarily recalled all printed volumes and temporarily suspended production of future volumes in digital sales. However, the manga continued its run in monthly Big Gongen. In August 2015, it was reported that Square Enix and SNK Playmore had reached a settlement, canceling the lawsuit and enabling the manga to be sold again in different formats. It is also probably the reason why, if you read the manga and you watch the anime, there are a ton of credits for all the various games that are featured in said series.
Yes.
Just a pro tip: if you're trying to do something like that, get the rights first. Don't
Yeah.
don't just wing it and think everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Not the best idea. I don't know how like copyright law works in Japan, but
I think it's a little. I think it's
obviously,
a little less stringent than it is over here. But yeah,
like it's a good idea. And usually like with something like this, they'd be like, "Oh, as long as we get credit, because it's not gonna I don't know, it might be negative, or they're like, hey, you can't use the actual name, you have to like use a
it's a
similar
parody.
title.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not when you're like
um
taking just like actual sprite rips and showing like screens and everything.
right.
That makes it a little
um
more suspect.
which like Guile is an ongoing character in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just shows up and talks a lot, as you do when you're Guile.
It's true. If I was Guile, I would just show up and be like, "Hey, what's up, folks?"
If I were Guile, I would just want the theme playing around me at all times.
That's also very true.
Like, you gotta have that when you have like the best theme of all of them.
You're not wrong.
But yeah, so yeah, pay attention to rights. It kind of matters
Yes.
sometimes. This is an instance of where it mattered.
Which is a good thing they got that all like squared up and everything, because like,
Squared up.
hey, like this
Hey.
series lives and dies on the fact that like it has the rights to games from this time period.
Yeah, I mean it wouldn't have been as fun in my opinion if it had been like real weird knockoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Um because there are a lot of references, like a lot.
A lot.
And like imagine if they had like a dollar store version of Guile doing all the dialogue where Guile
There's
shows up.
guy
Like
with a
that,
mustache.
it would have been really disappointing.
Yeah.
And not as funny and not as charming.
Mm-mm.
So I'm glad that they got it all worked out, but at the same time, like, yeah, just get the rights.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Also, this anime has music in it from famed video game composer Yoko Shimomura,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously that fits for the time period this is set in, because she was doing
Right.
a lot of stuff at that time. I think specifically around Capcom.
I mean, she did Street Fighter 2.
Mm-hmm.
So
And obviously, the connection to Square probably made that a little bit easier to loan her out to do this.
don't say loan her out as if she's equipment.
Well, I mean,
I'm just kidding. It's just funny.
that's the way it
She's
goes.
like, they're like, yeah, we just need to check her out for a few hours, have her do a couple songs. It'd be fine. Just that's it. We'll return her. We promise.
God.
And then, like, you know, they end up getting late fees because they didn't return her in time. I work in a library, you can tell.
You do. So yeah, there is a lot of video game stuff in here. Like you see actual like consoles. Like you see like the Famicom, you see a Super Famicom, you see a PC Engine. There's a PlayStation, a Saturn maybe.
The Saturn's there. What was the graphics?
That's the PC Engine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it has a different name in there that like.
Yeah, the PC Engine is the Japanese name, and then TurboGrafx is the
There we go,
US name.
TurboGrafx. Which is another thing is that in the dub they do translate.
Yeah, the localized names. Yeah.
Although like they get the dates wrong of a few things, and that was a little weird, but you know, you can't expect perfection.
Good job, Netflix.
God.
Delayed the show for everyone to be able to watch it here legally, and then you mess up dates.
Yeah, I mean it's like, you know, saying that Street Fighter 2 came out in like 1987 is inaccurate.
Just slightly.
Yeah. I mean, a Street Fighter came out in 1987.
A Street Fighter did come out in 87. You're right.
But it was not Street Fighter 2. One thing that we should talk about, because I know that it's like a big thing for this, and it was something that I noticed while I was watching it. So this has a really unique art style.
Mm-hmm.
Like really unique.
It's a mix almost of 2D and 3D art, essentially.
It is.
Which like
it's very, very odd to watch sometimes.
It fits the art style of the manga very well.
Oh, definitely. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing.
No,
it's
yeah, me
very
either.
different.
It's just the way that they make it definitely like invokes that tone and fits that art style like way better, I think, than if it was just like traditional 2D.
Yeah.
Like it might have been a little bit harder to really make it work. But
I agree with that. I liked it a lot. It was a very interesting anime to look at.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that that's exciting. And the ending art reminded me a lot of the ending of Chobits. Which is kind of weird.
That's not something you would really expect to hear.
No, but it did. Like if you watch them side by side, it reminds me a lot of Chobits.
I can get that. It's just it's not something I was expecting to hear.
Yeah. So I watched that one like every time. I didn't watch the opening every time, but I watched the ending every time because it's like I like this. This is kind of zen, kind of chill.
I'm guessing they did not include the promotional material they used when the show was airing in Japan at the end of each episode. Because at the end of each episode in Japan, they would like promo a game.
They do that.
They do actually?
Yeah, they like set up an arcade and he tells you a little bit about.
No,
like...
not that.
Oh, okay.
This was more specific about like this might have actually been like, is either the bumpers or like the post credits after like the arcade info dump.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But
because
like,
that was always at the post credits was like him talking about like an arcade game
yeah,
or something.
there was a few skits where they would like kind of hype up specific games that were like coming out around the time. So like they did
Oh
some
no.
about the Street Fighter 30th anniversary edition, the SNK Girl Fighters game, and then something else that I
No,
forget.
they didn't do that.
That makes sense because those were very specific and of the time,
Hmm.
because they really wouldn't have played if specifically with Netflix. But I thought that was a very interesting thing that they did along with the anime as well, just to like, hey, here's this game, or here's this like this company that is in this series represented. Here's a game that they have coming out, especially with like Street Fighter. It's like, oh, here's all these Street Fighter games that you've probably seen in this show. Here's a reason to go play them.
That's actually really smart though,
Yeah.
especially since they were like trying to play nice with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really smart way to be like, "Hey, we're playing nice. Here's some promo."
Here's some
But
free
yeah,
advertisement if you let us put your stuff in.
they didn't do that here. They just did
Yeah,
the arcade
which
bumps.
makes sense.
Yeah. Um, I thought I was gonna say something about a brain fart, so never mind.
Goodbye to your brain.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of just the case. Well, this week.
So
So,
let's dive into this series, I guess.
okay, we can first like give a general overview, I would think, which we've kind of talked about it, that it's about like the 90s arcade scene.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you have these two main characters that you deal with pretty regularly. And it's what Haruo,
Yeah,
and then Akira. Um,
it's weird to hear them like as like their first names because the Japanese dub obviously gives their family names. That's all you hear.
mhm.
It's like I barely know their first names, and you would be the opposite.
And that's usually how I am because I watch dubs a lot.
Yeah,
But
which we should mention. You watched the dub that Netflix made for this. I watched this series when it was airing in Japan because Netflix had a hold on it and wasn't releasing it until much later in the year. And I was like, that's stupid, Netflix. You're trash when it comes to anime.
yeah, but I got to hear JYB.
You did get to hear JYB.
And for the record, because people like to dump on JYB, um, he did a fantastic job on this. Like, it doesn't sound like him when you first hear it. And like every once in a while you'll get a hint of like that's JYB, but he really pulled this off. And he actually pulled off playing like a younger kid very, very well. Because usually I hear him as like an older teenager or a young adult, something like that. So I've never actually heard him play like a kid. And he was able to like adjust his tone very, very well. I was really impressed. Like, you go, JYB. There you go. There's the quote of the week. But yeah, so anyway, you have these two main characters and they you kind of see like how they navigate friendship and relationships, but also just like the 90s arcade scene and how gaming was evolving at the time. That's your general overview.
Haru is basically like just normal adolescent kid growing up who loves games. Akira is basically a rich person.
A rich person.
A rich person. She is very wealthy. She also just doesn't talk.
She doesn't talk ever.
Mm-mm. She communicates via
facial expressions and grunts.
Facial expressions, grunts, and physical
and
movements. Yes, or violence. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's also like, kind of the trope of he's very average or below average, and she's like a very popular person, even though like people think that she's like very shy, which I guess she is. She does very, very well in school, so they're kind of like polar opposites in that sense, which again is a trope. But
and also that they don't really know like that she's super into games like he is.
Yeah, they don't know that. So you kind of have like this opposites friendship type thing going on, and it's pretty cool.
Essentially, that's kind of how like the first episode sets everything up, where
Yeah,
that
so you
happens, and basically they get into an encounter at an arcade. He gets beat, and he's like, "Who beat me? I'm supposed to be this best person ever here at the arcade." And he like sees
at Street
her.
Fighter 2
Yeah,
specifically.
and he sees it's her. And he's like, What?
What? Yeah, so it starts because he's like been playing himself up as like he's the best person at this arcade at Street Fighter 2. He's amazing as Guile. He can beat anybody. He has streaks. And then like somebody comes in and picks Zangief and he's like, "Oh, interesting." Um and then just like completely wrecks him. And he's like, "Who could have possibly done that?" And he looks around the arcade and he's like, "Oh, what?" So this is where he learns that she is super into video games, and he starts to see her kind of like as a rival at this point because he wants to get better than her and beat her. Um, which one of the things that keeps coming up, which is hilarious, is like actual Street Fighter techniques of how you're going to fight against certain characters.
Yeah.
So like the Guile turtling comes up like
Mhm.
a million times in this series because like it comes up as him talking about like regular things, but also he'll talk about Guile turtling like because he's actually playing the game. So it's pretty funny how they use like actual fighting game techniques to refer to like real life things too.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely done stuff like that before where I'm like, yeah, this is this video game type thing, and then I'm like, oh right, people don't know what that is. But yeah, so that's where we kick this off. Is they now know that like she likes to play games, and he has been completely wrecked by her, and he's named her as his official rival because he has to beat her. That's episode 1.
Yeah. And basically that leads to them like going to a bunch of arcades together. Like they'll play against each other and with each other, but mostly it's playing with each other. Is just like she's playing and he tries to join in, and she and like actively tries to like make his wife suffer.
Yeah, like one of the things that happens is they're playing is it Final Fight that they're playing?
I think so.
And she's like doing a barrel trick where she can like get a high score, and he broke a barrel before she could do the thing. She got like real mad at him. And then he realized like, oh, this is how she's playing it. I'm doing it wrong and I'm kind of hindering her. And but yeah, they like to play with each other. And the funny part about this episode, and I've learned in this that his mom is a very odd character.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like this is where you learn a little bit because he brings it up like probably approximately 10,000 times in the series that she's not allowed to have home consoles. And like I said, nobody at school knows that she's into this hobby, and because she's like from a rich and proper family, she's not allowed to have them there. So her chauffeur essentially like helps her play arcades, but then also she just runs off from him sometimes and plays arcades. But she ends up at his house because he is sick and she's bringing homework, and she gets to play on his home consoles.
Which it should be said, he's that weird person you knew growing up who didn't have like a Super Nintendo or a Genesis. He had the TurboGrafx or the PC engine.
He's that guy.
He was the one adamant that the PC engine was the best console out of those three.
Yep. And his mom like makes like pancakes and basically is like, "You're cute. Please stay forever and love my son." Also don't get into shenanigans. I'm like, they're like in middle school, but it turns out they're younger than that. But either way, like, don't tell your kid to get into shenanigans. That's weird. But yeah, she like tucks into those pancakes like it's nobody's business. She loves them. But he also realizes like she's not very good at home consoles yet because she's not used to controller or the way that it works. But he's telling her like, look at the difference of this game and this game, and look at this one, and it's so cool. And she's appreciating that he's like sharing this with her, and she's real excited about it. Um, so like we've come to a part of I'm kind of like separating this series into arcs, um, partially arbitrarily, but whatevs. This is our podcast. We do what we want.
I'm trying to find the
Um,
one game that they show off that like he has her play. That's a
it's the like China something.
China Warrior. Yes, because it has the big sprites.
Yeah,
He's like, look at how big they are.
yeah, China Warrior. So she
God.
plays that, and she's like very awkward with a controller, and but she likes it, and so with the like the way that this arc kind of comes to a close is there's a few things that happen. One, it's the end of the like summer vacation.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming to the end of the school year and all that. Not school year, but the summer part of the school year anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and so they hang out with some friends, and they originally like are supposed to go as a group, and several of the friends are like really into this girl. They end up in like the seedy arcade part of the amusement park, and he eventually, like when they come out and she's looking at the Ferris wheel, he's having like an inner monologue because the guy tells him like, oh, we're not taking any more people, and he's like, okay, this is weird. I'm disappointed. Like, why would I be disappointed in this? What does this mean? Oh, well, I guess it means nothing. So we start realizing that he's like thinking of her in a different way than just as a rival at that point. Um, but he's like in elementary school, so you have a hard time making sense of like the smallest things. So of course you're not going to figure out like feelings for somebody.
Right.
Um, and we also have the scene where like she essentially like runs away with him um to go check out this like 10 yen arcade that they've heard about, this urban legend, and so they go out there and they find it, and they go and play for a bit, and then they leave, and he realizes that he left the bike key in there, and he goes to turn around to get it, and it's all spooky because like it's all closed, and everybody says that it the guy was banking on the boom and it didn't happen and he died, and that it closed in 1987. And they're like, and she can't deal with anything scary. She does not like scary games, and she
Nope.
kind of freaks out anytime that happens. So she loses it. And also like their one form of transportation, which was the bike, is now unusable, so they have to walk. And I think one of the cutest parts about this is that she's wearing shoes that end up like rubbing blisters, and he's like, oh, it's not going to be great, but like just wear my shoes. So he walks like in sock feet for the rest of the way and gives her shoes gives him her shoes. Wait, no, opposite. Gives her his shoes. So that was really cute. He carried her shoes the rest of the way, and then he gets hit by a car.
Which becomes a notable thing that happens throughout this series.
Yes, so he gets hit by a car, just casually as you do, and um the chauffeur is like, I've been looking everywhere for you. Where have you been, young miss? Oh my goodness. Um and we learned by the end of the episode that she's moving, that she is going to California, I think, with her
California,
family.
here she comes.
Yeah. And everybody's supposed to say bye to her and give her like a goodbye gift, and he goes to school and is like, oh, I forgot, I'm sorry, I didn't bring anything, and he has like an inner monologue of, I just couldn't think of the right thing. um And so everybody's like, man, you're a jerk. Why would you do this? You suck. And eventually he runs to the airport as she's leaving, which, like, this is not a thing that would happen anymore. But he meets her like at the gate when she's about to board and gives her like a ring that he had gotten at that 10 yen arcade. And he was like, I couldn't think of anything, but like, I'm gonna give you this, and this is all I can give you, and I'm gonna miss you, and blah blah blah. I'm gonna beat you one day. Things that kids worry about. And so he gives her the ring. She gets like dragged off as she's crying. And oh my God, Loki just brought me a Mr. Bill.
Oh,
It's really cute.
what a good boy.
So she's gone. Netflix, please. Why did you just like go to a different screen?
Because it's a bad app.
It is a bad app. I'm sorry if it yells at me because like
Are you still watching?
It's a bad app. So that's how we end our first arc. Like he's met her, he realizes that they like games together. He decides she's the rival. He might have feelings for her. Then she leaves. Arc 1 done.
Mm-hmm.
Arc 2, we're going to middle school, and we have a new friend that shows up.
New girl.
New girl. She's blonde.
She's got an arcade in front of her house, so what better way to hang out than just play in front of the arcade cabinet all day long?
Yeah, so that's really the gist of like what happens here and how he meets her and all that. Like she's this new person in the middle school, and she has never played video games, doesn't really understand it. What's her name? Hideka.
Mm-hmm.
And so they end up like playing. It's some version of Street Fighter, I'm pretty sure.
This says it's Street Fighter 2 Dash, which is Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition.
And she ends up picking as well, and like doing pretty okay with him. And he's like, interesting. So this kind of like sets up a new dynamic of like potential friend that is a girl who is playing video games, even though she's still like very not interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is also the part where they're supposed to go to like a Christmas party type thing with their class, and he ends up like blowing it off to play games, and she's like, well, we didn't go, so we may as well like trade gifts here. And she like gives him gloves that she knitted.
I think that's the case.
And he's like, she's like, if you're gonna be out here playing games, it'd be good for you to have these gloves anyway. And he's like, it's gonna be kind of hard for me to play with these gloves, but I'll figure it out, it'll be fine. I just have to like adjust things. And so she's kind of like interested in who this person is and thinks that he's a weirdo at this point.
She's not wrong.
Which I would say she's not really wrong. And her dad really likes installing new games. I do remember that. He gets real excited about it. So you have kind of an interesting dynamic building up with these two, and that she is not at his level yet of being able to play fighting games, but she's interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
But she's very like hesitant about being interested. And so they go to an arcade together, and they're hanging out and playing Mortal Kombat because Mortal Kombat in the 90s is exciting.
Which is interesting to see like the Japanese side of like what they thought of Mortal Kombat when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't really ever hear that. It's mostly just
no, you don't.
What happened over here.
But yeah, they play Mortal Kombat, and we found out that Haruo is really good at Raiden, however you want to pronounce his name. I've heard it both ways.
Lightning Man.
Lightning Man, which is hilarious because they have the whole conversation of like, what is he saying? Which, for the record, if you're watching on Netflix, and I often do this just because I sometimes have a hard time like differentiating what people are actually saying. So I put on subtitles a lot, even if I'm watching it dubbed. Turns out the dub script and the translation, like the subtitles script, are completely different.
Yeah.
So my guess is they probably like translated the Japanese and put that as the subtitles, but they like retranslate it in a different way for the dub.
Yeah, that's usually how those go.
I mean, sometimes they match.
Usually there's some difference.
Not usually this bad, but like they often had just like a completely different script.
Yeah.
But in this case, like the script was very, very different, and they had him yelling, "Pass me the mustard," in the dub, which was very funny. And she ends up picking Sub-Zero, and she's like, "Huh, this is a weird game. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna like mash buttons and figure it out." And he's like, "Oh, that's not cool. Button masher, blah 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 blah." And then he's like, "Oh, but there's no way you'll pull off a fatality win." And then she does, and he's like, "What? How'd you button mash your way into a fatality?" So he starts like respecting her a bit more, even though he realizes like she's button mashing, she's not quite there yet. But he's like, "Okay, cool. She can hang. How about this?"
She can hang.
Yeah. So it's more about like their growth of their friendship and all that.
But he never really like puts her in the same pedestal as Akira.
She is not the rival.
No.
She's not a threat to him at this point.
Because even like throughout, like while all this is happening, he'll sometimes like monologue about how he wishes she was there so like they could have another match and see how like he's grown and how she's grown and what would happen if they had like another face off again and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely not at that level with Blondie. Like he obviously likes hanging out with her and likes talking video games. I think he would talk to a wall about video games.
Oh, totally.
But she is not a replacement.
No.
So what do we have going on next? Is this like where we have the return happen?
The return.
Okay, so the return is this arc, I guess, which ends up putting in some conflict, I guess. That he's like at the arcade, he's playing this game. It's one of the new ones, I'm pretty sure, like Super Street Fighter, maybe.
Probably.
I remember Cammy's in it, so.
So that'd be Super. Was she in
New
Super before
Challengers?
Turbo, or? Hang on.
I think Cammy was in New Challengers. There's so many versions of Street Fighter 2 that like I
and different
get them
names.
Mixed up. It's complicated. Anyway, so you have it's not him playing at this point though, it's her, right?
What do you mean?
Like I'm trying to remember because she, Akira picks Akira, however you want to pronounce her name. She picks Akuma, and who was a secret character. And I'm trying to remember who was playing against her. Oh, I remember how it went.
You would know better than I would.
Okay, so Haruo is playing, and he has a streak going, but he has to run to the bathroom. And so he runs to the bathroom and leaves her and is like, "Don't lose my streak. Like, you can do this."
Yeah. You're.
So she's playing, and then she picks her character and she's like, oh, are they having a hard time picking? Like they keep going the different character. Who is that? um and so like gets completely destroyed with Akuma, um which they pronounce it differently in this version. I've never heard it pronounced that way, but
The Japanese name for Akuma is Goki.
they didn't say that. They called him Akuma.
Oh, they called him Akuma?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. I've never heard that pronounced that way, but
I don't. That's weird.
um but anyway, I've always heard him called Akuma because I am a white person who is very terrible at pronunciations,
Yeah.
and apparently everybody around me is too.
By the way, Street Fighter 2X or Super Street Fighter 2X is Turbo.
Okay,
Super Turbo.
Cool. So we have the return.
But he doesn't know it because he comes back and she's gone.
Yes. But she's like, yeah, man, there was somebody who's really good, and they picked this character I've never seen before, and I am sorry I lost a streak. And he's like, oh, it's okay, it's fine, we'll live. So he still does not know that she is back, and the next episode is the class trip. Yes, that's what this is. Class trip
to Kyoto.
Yeah, you always have to have a class trip. One of my favorite parts about this episode is when they're on the bullet train and the teacher comes up and is like, I know you didn't bring like a portable game console, right? And he's like, no, I understand where priorities have to be for a trip like this. And then he like snickers and is like, that's because I brought the actual console to hook into the TV at the hotel. I want to play with my boys. And I was like, you nerd.
Which has already been established before, I think, that like he has the portable PC engine. Which is just like, who in their right mind owns that?
Yeah, he has that. Also, I guess worth mentioning because it says in the summary that Hideka is like actually really getting into this now. Like she is a Super Nintendo and buys a bunch of games for it, and is like actually interested in starting to play video games now. Side note. But yeah, so they're on the bullet train, they're going to Kyoto, and they have like a stop at one point, and the teacher, who basically looks like a stereotypical like martial artist type character, I think they're trying to like do some kind of odd like Chinese stereotype.
Yeah.
But he's like motion sick and needs a soda, and so he gives Haruo like quite a bit of yen. Like it's a solid amount of money. And he's like, go get soda and you can have some too. It's fine. So he like decides that he's gonna go out and he's gonna buy soda for him and his friends and also the teacher, and then he'll come right back. But then he's having a hard time like balancing all of them and drops some of them, and so Hideka like goes out and is telling him like, we're gonna miss the train, you need to hurry up, I'll help you, come on. And then they miss the train, and he's like, it's fine, we'll just go to the arcade,
we have money.
we have money, we can arcade things. And she gets so mad at him. He's like, take it out on like the alligator whack-a-mole type game. He gets to play some games. He's excited about that. And she's basically like, this is your fault. What are you going to do about it? And he's like, I don't know, nothing. We'll walk. We'll get to see the lake. That's cool, right? We'll eventually take a bus or a slow train or something. We'll get there. And she's just like not happy with him, even with these like reassurances that he's giving. Which he does make a good point that they got to see this lake, which is pretty cool.
The lake.
Yep. What else? What else happens? I think this is where she starts realizing that she has feelings for him.
Yeah.
Because that's also a thing that starts happening in this series, is that she starts liking him. Dun dun dun.
Drama.
Drama.
Drama llama.
Drama llama. Also, the TV thing backfires, and the teacher realizes that it's there and takes it away from them. Dum bum bum.
Rip in peace.
Yep. So, tragic. They do eventually get to Kyoto, by the way. They just have to take like a bunch of buses and a slow train and all that jazz.
But he's not staying in Kyoto
Uh,
long.
nope. Because there's a tournament going on. And so he sneaks off to go to the tournament so he can play. And guess who's there?
Me, I was there.
Oh my God, Jared, why are you there?
I had to win. Had to show off
So
my good skills.
um so they decide that he decides he's gonna go there and then realizes that she is also there.
Because
So he's
he
like,
had not known yet that she was back.
she's back. He's like, my rival, she has appeared. Finally, I can fight against her and win.
So basically, he's just like, he's adamant that he's going to meet her in the finals no matter what.
Yep. And he does really, really well against most of the competitors. And then, like, there's this one competitor that he's pretty nervous about going against.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's trying to do the input to get Akuma as his character, but messes up and picks Ryu, who he's not good with.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no. And he loses terribly and like starts beating on the game machine.
Mm-hmm.
But Haruo is excited because he's like, all right, cool, to go against her. It's fine. So they compete, and this is the first time they've played in a couple years together.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't understand why she's not doing certain moves, but you know, he wins and he's like, yes, I did it. I beat my rival. I'm better. And then like as he's being awarded his stuff, he hears in the background the like the people who are running the
Tournament organizers.
Yeah. And they're like, oh man, like certain buttons on this are broken. I guess like when the guy was beating on the machine, he like busted some stuff up and she could only use certain buttons. Like, do we say something? How does this work? And this makes Haruo get like pretty upset. Like, you went easy on me. You could have said something about like those buttons not working. You could have gotten something else. Like, you let me win. Why did you do this? I forget why they actually got matching shirts, but they got matching shirts.
I think because they went to the tournament.
Right, but I forgot why they put them on.
Because they wanted to look cool.
No, there was a reason, because everybody, when they get back, they're like, oh, why are you guys dressed like couples?
They wanted to look cool.
I mean, maybe. I mean, there's got to be a reason, but I don't remember what it is. Anyway, they end up like coming back. Everybody's like, ooh, couple shirts, cool. And they're like, oh, right, it's just Street Fighter shirts, nerds. But so he doesn't feel like vindicated in the sense that he's actually beat her, because he felt like she like went easy on him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we get to a little bit of a different arc, which is like the coming up on a high school arc.
High school. It's where school is high.
Oh my God. We are getting older. Things are changing.
Not getting any younger.
Oh boy, no, we're not. So he's been able to play with her again, which is exciting for him, because like she challenges him in a way that he wants to get better and better and better. And he decides that he's actually going to like give a shit about his high school entrance exams.
Mm-hmm.
And like try and get into the same school as her, even though it's like a really good school and his grades are really not good.
So everyone's basically like, you're not gonna do this, and he's like, watch me.
Which,
bet.
You know, we've seen this happen in a different anime that we liked.
Mm-hmm.
But his doesn't go quite the same way.
It doesn't, but he basically like he devotes himself like wholeheartedly to it. Like he he basically doesn't go to the arcade anymore. He doesn't do any of that. He doesn't play games anymore. He basically like he turns all of his video game like knowledge and like how his brain works when he's playing video games into like making it to where like it helps him study.
Yep.
As weird as that sounds, like he basically just like focuses heavily in on this and puts in all the work, like legitimately puts in the work, but
He tries really hard.
he comes up short.
But he does get into another high school, which is good. At least he got into a school.
Yeah, he gets into school where like Hideka and like a bunch of the other people he knew, or he went to middle school and like elementary school went to.
Mm-hmm.
So like he goes to like the other school, the normal school.
Which he's bummed about, but like he tried, and that's something that he's pretty proud of himself about, that he actually like gave it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like bummed out about like not getting in there at first, but he's like, there was no way I was gonna get in there anyway, but I tried. And by the way, I mentioned it earlier when we were talking, but like the funniest part about this entire series is that Guile is just constantly giving this boy pep talks. Constantly.
Yes. Guile is his moral conscience.
Basically, yes. Like anytime he has any kind of like issue or crisis, Guile just shows up and like talks to him. It's hilarious. Sometimes like E Honda shows up, but mostly it's Guile. And so now we're in high school. And we have a new Haruo crisis, which is that he's been playing home games a lot.
My Sega Saturn is too good. I'm not good at the arcades anymore.
So that's his crisis, is that like he's prided himself so much on being like really great at arcade games. He loves arcade games, but now that he's had some home consoles, he's stuck to that mostly. So whenever he goes back to an arcade, he's like, oh, I'm not good anymore. This is not good.
So basically he goes into like a slump, into like a funk, and he's just bad. And he has to basically build up his muscle memory back, build back his skills again. And basically he kind of does that by like going back to basics, essentially, by like going back to older games and playing those, rebuilding the skills, and then progressing further and further until he gets into like the current stuff, which is like, I guess around this time would be like VF2, Darkstalkers, KOF 95, 96?
94, I think.
I feel like
because I remember he plays 94.
Okay. I feel like it'd be late though for 94, but
yeah, but I think 95 comes out in one of these episodes.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, okay, now we got to play that. But he does say 94 in several of them. But yeah, he's having to like go back and figure out like, how do I get good again?
hashtag get good.
Get good. Meanwhile, we've learned that somebody else has been getting real good.
It's me.
Yeah, it is you.
Yeah.
So Hideka has been practicing a lot and enjoying herself, but like playing and getting good at video games, but not just because of Haruo. Like that is a driving force, but it's not just because of him. Like she's actually enjoying playing games.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. And she actually gets to like meet Akira and like play with her again. So that's
they play some Virtua Cop.
They do. I forgot about that. And she realizes like, oh, she's on a whole different level from me. Like, and it take like 2 or 3 shots to defeat something. She can just one shot it and be done and keep moving. And I'm holding her back, which is a lot of what Haruo always had an issue with. Is he always felt like he was holding her back from doing like well at video games.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to think if there's this is also the episode where she where Akira goes missing.
Yes.
So she goes missing and the chauffeur is like, please help us find her. I don't know where she is. And he like looks at all the arcades in the town and he's like, wait a minute. If I were her, where would I go? And so he goes to this other town that he says a few times can get like shady at night. And he keeps getting like distracted by like used consoles and things. He's like, oh god, I want no wait, I have to go find her. Oh, I have to go find her. And he does eventually find her, and she's like got 100 and something win streak, and he's like, okay, we gotta go now, bye. Um, and he like feeds her, and then he calls his mom. Is like, hey, we found her, and like we gotta figure out what to do. And the funniest part is that like he calls his mom from the payphone, and his mom's like, call me back in like 5 minutes. So he just like goes out of the payphone. He's like, we gotta call her back in 5 minutes. um, and turns out that his mom's solution to figuring out what to do about this is to just get them a hotel room. Um, one hotel room.
A singular one.
Yep. Um, so they have to stay in the one hotel room, and he pulls out, I think it's an NES that he bought. He bought a used console somewhere, and he pulls it out, and they start playing it, and he's like, oh yeah, you're still bad at console games. You still not have one?
Yeah, because isn't it a top loader?
Yeah.
Because it got the wishbone controllers. Oh god, my alarm.
Oh no, alarms.
Scared me.
That's a different game. So they're playing together, and at one point, which they have the awkward thing at the beginning of like, well, we got a shower like in the same area, and we gotta figure out what we're gonna do, and like, oh no. um and one of the funniest parts about this is that like he's freaking out the whole time, like, what is this Western style bathroom? I wouldn't know how to use this if she hadn't gone before me. The shower curtain goes inside the bathtub, and this happens, and why is the toilet right here? So that was pretty entertaining. But yeah, they play games, and he ends up having to go to work, which by the way, I forgot to mention, he has a part-time job now. He's being responsible.
Mm-hmm.
He works in a bento box place. So he has to go to work, and he's like, okay, I'm going to work. I'll be back at 11. Don't go anywhere. I'll come get you. And so he's like, go to sleep. It's fine. And so he leaves her, comes back and gets her, and everything's honky dory with the whole like running away thing. Everything works out.
And essentially, that's the end of the first season.
Yes.
Because there's some bonus episodes that they put out afterwards.
Correct.
So these are the ones that I'm more familiar with because I've watched them more recently. And by
Yay!
more recently, I mean like 5 months ago.
Well.
But this is like the one arc of the manga that I was very much looking forward to seeing adapted. And I was bummed that it didn't happen in the first season, but then like I was like, okay, maybe they'll put it out in the bonus episodes, and they totally did, and I was very, very happy with
You
that.
were a happy Jared.
Yes. So essentially, Akira gets like banished and banned from going out and doing anything fun.
Yeah, her tutor is like, you have to like be a member of this family, a productive member. You have to do all these things. You can't have fun anymore.
Mm-hmm. So that happens. Akira's sister is basically like thinks it's all her fault for going against the family way, and like now it's just being thrown on to Akira and all this sort of stuff. So all that's happening. Meanwhile, Hideka confesses her feelings to Haro, and he's just like, huh?
And
what?
She makes a challenge to him that if he wins, she'll drop it. And if she wins, then they have to go out on a date. They have to play fighting games.
Yes, so they have like a big competition, a big best 2 out of 3, I think.
2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, so they have all that. He basically he takes it seriously, but like he underestimates her at first, essentially, because he's like,
Mhm.
oh, it's Sadeka. I'm not really gonna have that much problem with her. She goes off in the meantime before the competition and goes off and like trains in this other place, like meets up with like this one group who
Super gamers.
she beats them, and then they're like, oh, you're good, and then like she goes like and trains with them and they get her better and like more adapt to like what she's good at and like what will help her win this competition. Um,
Mhm.
so they have like an episode basically devoted to like the entire competition, and I forget exactly like which games they play in like what order, but um, I think the first game she takes
She takes it pretty easily.
because he's just like, oh god, this is not what she used to do. This she is much better than I remembered.
Mhm.
All the meanwhile, like her new posse is just like taunting Haru and like jeering him the entire time. Anytime like he does anything shady,
Yep.
like boo this man. Um, the second game he takes, but it's still very close.
Yeah, and it looked like it was going to like go the other way at first because she like took out two of his characters with her because it's like a tag team type of game.
Mm-hmm.
So you have three characters. She took out two. They're like, oh, this is gonna be easy. You're gonna take him down. And then he takes down like her one that she's comfortable with, and the other two she had picked just because they were like secret characters and they were tough, but she didn't know how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
So once the one she knew how to use went down, she's like, oh God, I don't know what to do. So she lost that one.
And I think they end on Darkstalkers.
Yes.
And she's very confident in this. Like she's like, if there's
Yes.
anything that I can do, if I can win any game, it's gonna be this. And basically, that entire match is like extremely close.
Yep.
Like it's a lot of like high tech, uh, big guarding here and there, getting out of the way of supers and all that sort of stuff. Um, but he's able to win,
Yes. He wins.
and they're all mad.
Yeah, they're all like, we're gonna beat his ass in. She's like, no, it's okay. Like he and she actually freaks out and is like, you know what? We're gonna do more fighting. Like we have to do more of these, and we did actually this right. Blah 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 blah. And he's like, yeah, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. I won. So she kind of like backs off with the whole feelings thing
For now.
for now.
For now. There's an arc that happened in the manga, where stuff will happen that this pops back up again.
Oh, I believe it
She
does.
changes her challenge,
Oh no.
or I guess her challenger, I should say. But we'll
Oh.
see that in season 2. But the final bonus episode is the one I was really looking forward to because it's very goofy and also real good. So Haru meets Akira's sister because he thinks it's her, and like he gets surprised that it's not, but like she knows who he is.
Yep.
And a lot of it is like him trying to figure out like, okay, are my feelings for Akira actually real and all this, and everyone around him being like, just freaking go for it already. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So something happens, and like she basically is like, okay, I'm gonna go buy you a game, and
She gets him a dating
she
sim.
buys him Tokameki Memorial, which is
Yes.
perfect.
It's amazing.
They're like, okay, you need to learn how to talk to girls. Here's this dating sim. Here's the most popular dating sim ever created, and here you go. This is how you're gonna do it. And like she goes and watches him play, and like his mom's there, and then Hideka shows up as well because she's like, I want to take this PlayStation home, and then they're like,
Yep.
no, he needs to learn to play this to learn how to talk to girls, and she's like, oh, I guess I'll stay and watch.
So they all three watch him, and he's like picking options of like what he would do, and also like trying to stick with one girl, but then like messes up because he's so nervous, and eventually he like gets through the game and nobody dates him, and they're like,
Yeah.
how did you end up with no one? What is wrong with you?
Like there's a point where it's like, hey, we should go to the arcade. And he's like, oh yeah, we're totally doing this, and the girl's like, I don't know about it. Like, what do you mean?
And then there's another part that like they actually are at an arcade, and It's like, what kind of games do you want to play? And he's like, shooting games. That's awesome. And then she's like, I don't like those. And like, you're supposed to pick crane games. What are you doing?
Just the girls just like completely harassing it the entire time. Like, your choice is terrible. What are you doing?
Yep.
Uh,
So he ends up alone.
yeah.
So I told him to study, keep playing.
Togi Memo is
Um,
also like the game they parody in Nozaki-kun,
yeah,
which
I
is
figured.
very good. So that all happens and like it's supposed to help in all this. He also learns that like Akira's had basically a ban put on like all games and everything. Like she got like the chauffeur got his job taken away because he had concealed a Game Gear in like his
Yep.
car for her to play, and like that got found out. So now he's like a maid in the house essentially. So she can't
Mhm.
really go anywhere or do anything. But her sister and Haru come up with an idea of like, well, let's smuggle in a console to her and I'll make a game for her. So like he gets like a Super Famicom and he gets a copy of RPG Maker.
And he gets so into making this
Mm-hmm.
RPG for her. Like he's so into it. He spends days and days and days making it. And he's like, she's gonna be the hero, and we're gonna have some bosses that are in the mansion, and like the final boss is gonna be your tutor.
Mm-hmm.
And he like builds in like an arcade in there for the main character to use, and it's super cute. He spends a lot of time on
It's
it.
very good.
And eventually like they're able to give it to her, and she like is able to find happiness again in the house because she like go over to the chauffeur's room and play it for a bit and enjoys like what he's done for her.
Mm-hmm. Because like they keep sending it to her because like he keeps making updates for it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually it gets found out and like the tutor throws it out, which is bad
Yep.
because like I don't think it wasn't his console, and obviously you can't get that game back.
Right.
Um, I think at one point, I don't know if at one point,
She like breaks
yeah.
down. She like cries and runs out, and ugh.
At one point, the tutor goes over to Haru's house and is like talking to his mom, like he is a bad influence on Akira. You should not do this. But she's like trying to play it cool when his mom's in the room, and then like once she leaves, like she like lays into Haru, and then his mom comes back like, "Oh, what were you saying to my son about how he's like trash and everything? Yeah, let's have a talk."
Yeah, it's really funny because like his mom for the most part throughout this has been like sort of like an odd woman and kind of irresponsible and weird. But at this point, when the tutor's over there, um it starts raining, which is when she leaves, and she's like, "Oh, the rain, I have to go get this stuff." And so the tutor takes it upon herself to like lay into him there. That's when she's like, "Oh, so what do you think about my son? Like, what are you saying?" And she stands up for him for one, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But two, like the tutor's like, yeah, he just really needs to stay away from her. And she's like, how about you borrow this umbrella and like Akira can bring it back to him, or my son can get it from her at one point. And it's basically like dropping a very subtle like F you,
Mm-hmm.
lady. And Haruo was actually really excited. He's like, Mom, thanks. You defended me. I didn't know what to say. Like, I wasn't able to defend myself because of like respectability and all that. And she's like, you're a high schooler. Like, that wouldn't have been okay, but I can defend you.
Eventually, I think the tutor comes back and like after the whole console incident, because like she realizes like what it does to Akira and like how it really like
It
angers hers and
destroys
messes
her.
her up, and she's like, I messed up.
Yeah,
Whoops.
she comes to him at work.
And it's like, here, I need to reimburse you for this. She buys him a
Yeah.
Famicom Twin
Yep.
because she doesn't
And
obviously
he's
know the
like,
difference. He's like,
ugh.
thanks, I guess.
The
Okay.
funniest part is that he's like, adults need to stop calling everything a Nintendo.
That's good. And I think at the episode ends on like he's gonna go to this convention with his mom because he doesn't have
Hmm.
anyone to go with, obviously, and like they're like rounding a corner and like Akira shows up with the umbrella and his mom's like, "Oh, it's fancy meeting you here. Why don't you two go on ahead? It's all right."
The funniest part about that whole scene is that like they're about to cross the street, and then Guile tells him like, no, wait. And like he's standing there not crossing the street, and his mom's like, oh no, we're missing the light. What are you doing?
Guile told
What
me
are
to
you
wait.
doing? And he's like the fact that Guile told him to wait, and then she shows up to bring the umbrella back, and it's like, oh, that's why Guile told you to wait.
Thanks, Kyle.
Guile knows everything.
He's a good egg.
He is a good egg. So they get to go hang out with each other and this event, and they have a lot of fun, like seeing all the new games, and they like at the thing, and on the train back, they're like going through some of their swag, and he's like, "Oh man, you got a bunch of junk. Like I like to go for practical things like a fan." And then he asked something to the effect of like, "What's your favorite thing that you got?" And he was referring to like in the actual bag of stuff that she had, but she reaches under her shirt and pulls out the ring that he had given her like years ago at this point.
Yeah.
He's like, "You still have that?" So
It's very cute.
it's super cute. Romance. So yeah, we have season 1 and like OVAs under the belt at this point.
Season 2 will be hitting in October with the fall season, so of course that means Netflix will get it in 2020 because Netflix is trash. But yeah, that'll be the that'll wrap everything up because the manga is obviously ended as well. So you want to hear some hot previews of what you're to expect in season 2?
Yeah.
Akira versus Hideka.
I figured that.
Hideka's gonna challenge Akira over the feelings thing, and like basically just like see like, can I be good enough? Can I match her skills and all this stuff? Haru figures out he likes her.
Good, finally.
But he has his plan to win a tournament and confess to her, which she's also in. Yeah. So there you go. Big things happening in season 2.
Oof. That's exciting.
Yes.
One thing that I will say is that like it was very alarming how violent she is.
Yeah.
She's very violent.
She is very violent.
She just like headbutts him a few times. Like that's one of my favorite things. Is that's how his sister, her sister, recognizes him. Is that she's like, "Oh, it's from the sticker pictures," and like in the picture, he's being violently headbutted because he was like, "Oh, you know, this is girly and I don't like it. I'm just gonna make a face,"
Boom.
and she's like, "Boom, no." And like whenever he goofs up on something in the game, she like stomps his foot, or if he says something that she doesn't like, she just punches him. I'm like, Jesus, lady, learn to like emote yourself without violence. But that's what she does.
I mean, he does get hit by the chauffeur's car multiple times as well.
Oh, that's another thing, and I forget which episode it is, but they're having like a moment, and I thought that they were gonna like smooch it out, but then he gets hit by the car.
That happens late in like one of the episodes as well, and the chauffeur's like, "This is a very nostalgic feeling."
Yep. Yeah, it's really funny.
It's really good.
It's a good gag.
Yeah.
Although, like, God, that poor kid's got to have so many like body issues after getting hit by a car like 3 times.
Just eat some wall chicken, he'll be fine.
Nah. Give him an ice pack.
An ice pack in a video game.
Yep, he'll be fine. He gets sick twice in this, which is kind of amazing to get sick in like 15 episodes twice.
But it is over the course of multiple years, so.
I was gonna joke that that's owl levels.
Oh.
But yeah, you're right. It is, of course, over several years, but also like it's very clear he doesn't like take care of himself.
Nah.
He just likes to like focus on games, so
yeah,
it makes sense that he would get sick. The getting hit by a car thing's not his fault.
No. Just gets bamboozled.
He does some great spins when he gets hit.
He does. He spins very much.
Anyway, I like the show.
Yeah.
It was fun. I like marathoned it.
You did.
Which is funny because I was like on the elliptical a lot of the time that I was actually watching it. So I was like, oh God, the issue is I was like, oh, I'm gonna go on the elliptical like while I'm watching this, and I'll watch like an episode or two, and then I'll get off the elliptical, and then I'm like, oh God, my legs are gonna get jacked because I keep watching this. But it was super fun, and I watched it in I think like 2 days.
Basically.
Yeah. So, I'm excited about the next season. Excite Bike.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a unique show though, in terms of like art and the actual like fun gaming aspect of it. And like you said, like for me it's different seeing like Japanese perspectives of these games that I played a lot when I was a kid.
Hmm.
So it's exciting.
But also, you'd see a lot of games. A lot of games. A lot of games.
I I love seeing games.
Not everything, though, of course, because of course not. But, like,
Right.
a lot of Capcom stuff, a lot of SNK
Stuff.
stuff. Um, those are pretty much, like, the two big heavy hitters that you see. Obviously, Sega's involved because they have the Saturn and show up, and then, like, VF shows up as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, like a lot of different things you'll see in there. You won't really see any like mainline Nintendo stuff,
Nah.
which makes sense. But
I mean, yeah, the systems, but that's about it.
yeah, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. You get like a lot of just moments where you're like, oh yeah, I remember that game. I remember that game. Oh, that game. That's fun.
Also, how many anime do you know that has Mike Hagar in it?
That's
Honestly.
that's that's very true.
Hmm.
He's
He's
he's the
legit
mayor of the world.
the mayor of the world.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Let Guile be your moral center. He will guide you to great things.
I'll have to consider that actually. It might help me in life.
Just have him sonic boom through your problems.
Perfect. I'll guile turtle through life.
So yeah, that's gonna pretty much wrap this episode up.
Yeah, we did it.
We did it.
Yay!
Did you know the voice actress who plays Akira in the Japanese version was in Love Live Sunshine as
Ooh.
female student?
Nice.
There you go. Your one connection.
Um, I will again say, like, the dub of this is really, really good.
Yeah, it's the one thing I'm kind of bummed that I haven't gotten to see. But like I saw like all the voice talent attached to it, and I was like, yeah, that's probably real good.
Yep, it's real good.
So there's that. But yeah, like it is. If you want to watch it legally, it's on Netflix. If you want to watch it illegally, you probably have to suffer through really bad fan subs, like
But
really,
also, we're not gonna
really
give you
bad,
recommendations because we'll get in
really
trouble.
bad. Like, let's throw in some racism in there.
Oh God,
Yeah,
why?
because fan translating people think they're funny.
Oh God, ew.
But yeah, definitely check it out though. It is
Yes,
well worth the watch, especially if you're into the things that we talk about all the time.
which we are obviously.
Obviously. Well, all right. Well, that will wrap up this episode. If you'd like more from us, go to seasonalanimecheckup.com or sac.cool. It's where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like the Seasonal Anime Checkup and Jared and Al Watch. You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. If you want more from Anladium, go to anladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. And you can follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/animecheckup. And support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. Next week will be a thing.
It'll be a thing. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We have a movie to watch eventually, or we're just going to keep pushing that back.
We'll see.
We'll see. Something else might pop up and be like, oh, let's do that instead.
Yep.